Hi, and welcome to another review session for the CC2 Unit 3 assessment. Today we're going to talk about the power of the negative. So the following slides will explain the power of the negative and how it changes values or how it does not change values. So we want to think about negative numbers in three different ways. The first is this idea of the original. So the OG, what is the original value? What is the original number? So when we talk about the original, we're talking about the number that's actually negative. So negative 7 is actually a negative number. Negative 9 is actually a negative number. A negative 12 is actually a negative 12. They reside on the left-hand side of 0 on our number line. The next thing that we want to think about is this idea of the double negative. So that was something that was pretty confusing for a lot of people, and it is kind of where all of our math is headed. So the double negative. What happens here is we have two negatives right next to each other. That's the important part, is that they're right next to each other. And when we have this idea of these right next to each other numbers, it is always a positive result. So the negatives will change what's happening. Do you see how I have two negatives right next to each other? There's a parenthesis separating them, not a plus, not a minus. Another minus, I guess, to make them 3. So it is negative a negative 4, which makes that number a positive 4. And then also here we have a negative 6 multiplied by a negative 2. The negative 6 is a value. It's an actual negative 6 number, and it's multiplied by a negative 2. Two negatives make a positive. So can you spot the error here that Mrs. Brewer made? That should be a positive 12. So that's a positive 12, and that is a positive 4. I apologize about that. So a positive 4 and a positive 12. The next one is adding negatives. So there's a rule about adding negatives. A negative plus a negative is going to be, so adding negatives, a negative plus a negative is going to be a negative number. You're just past 0 and you're going to keep going. So when we take a look at the first problem, hopefully you can see that we have negative 4 plus negative 5. So your answer is a negative 9. Now the next problem, we have negative 1 minus negative 6, and that gives you negative 7. It's really saying, if you remember back, it's really saying negative 1 plus a negative 6. And those are two negative numbers to give you a value of negative 7. Okay, so let's try a couple. Negative, the value of 7 is going to be negative 7. Negative a negative, this is that idea that we were talking about with the double negatives. That's going to cause a positive 7. You don't need to write the positive, I'm just doing it so you can see. 9 minus a 2. We are literally just subtracting 9 minus 2. That's going to give us 7. Again, positive. Take a look at the next one. We have a negative 9 minus a 2. If we rewrote that using addition, which is something we practiced in class, that would be negative 9 plus the value of negative 2, which is going to give us negative 11. We're just continuing to add negatives, going to the left further on our number line. The next one, we have a negative 9, and then look, we have our double negative right here. So what does that do? That double negative becomes a positive, but the negative 9 is still negative. It has not been affected at all by what's happening here. So it becomes negative 9 plus a 2, which is going to give us a value of negative 7, because you are negative 9 and then you're going 2 more in the positive direction. All right, let's move on to the next ones. Very similar. Negative, the value of 5, negative 5. A double negative here in this negative parentheses, negative 5. That makes a positive 5. Same thing, double negative of the 3 causes it to become a positive 3. 7 minus the value of 4, minus 4. 7 minus 4 is 3. One more. We have a negative 7, and then here's our double negative rule, That becomes negative 7 plus a 4. This is the bigger number. Your answer is going to be -3. I hope you did well. I hope this helps you. And if you have any questions, make sure you're asking.